Now, in the 1980s, child psychiatrist Dr. Richard A. Garner coined a term to describe the process whereby one parent turns their child or children against the other parent. This term and this behaviour was deemed parental alienation.
Absolutely horrendous behaviour, and here to tell us all about this, we have family psychotherapist Richard Hogan. Good to have you back on the show, sir.
Thank you very much.
So, explain exactly what is parental or parent alienation.
Yeah, parental alienation, as Maura said, that was coined by Dr. Gardner in the 80s, and what it is the how you would observe it is the constellation of hurtful behaviours on the part of a child who vehemently rejects and directs, we would say, kind of, undeserved anger towards a once loved parent.
So when you say a once-loved parent, it's not kind of the child's fault. The child's behaviour has changed because the parent has swayed them in a certain direction.
Yeah, it's very different because when you're working with families, you would meet a lot of children who have developed an opposition to their father or mother due to very realistic, what we'd call realistic estrangement because of abuse or neglect. But this is different. This is an undeserved or kind of cannot explain why they're feeling such an anger towards a parent. And it normally comes, from a very protracted and difficult separation or divorce.
Yeah. And of course the child is stuck in the middle here innocently, and you have one parent saying this about the other parent, and because the child loves the mother or father so much, they're going to believe the parent.
Yeah. And that's, you see, there's a kind of a flaw set up in our system, Dahi, and it's kind of a gender bias, unfortunately. Men do find themselves at the wrong end of this, unfortunately, because generally the caregiver to a child is normally, say, the way society is constructed, would be the mom. And what happens is, in their child's desire to please the mother, they get themselves caught into this narrative that the mother's driving, and it's total devastation. In my experience working with it, nobody wins with this. It's absolute destruction for everybody involved.
Because really, I suppose they always say that people like you, obviously, in your profession would say that a child should be neutral, and the relationship between the parents, even if they've had, as you said, a protracted or a very bad breakup, should be neutral. Do you see signs in these in the kids to show that this is happening?
You would, Maura, and it's actually, to be honest, it's quite heart-wrenching. I wrote about it twice in the Examiner over the last couple of weeks, and the amount of letters and emails I've gotten in from parents, who are experiencing this. And what I'd see is a sign when you ask there is a child doesn't really understand, why they have developed this opposition to their father. They just have these feelings, but they can't explain why. There's no believable, they can't say this is a reason, that's a reason. They don't have that narrative. They just have these feelings that they don't like Dad.
Yeah, and because they are, in one sense, wired up to think like that now.
They're coerced into a narrative, unfortunately, and the more they go into the narrative, the more they receive positive affirmation or positive reinforcement by the parent who's driving this narrative against their ex-partner.
How long does it take for a child to be, because the word is almost moulded, I would say, into this condition?
Manipulated. You see, once this protracted divorce or separation is occurring, you could be looking at anything from a couple of weeks that it happens so quickly. But the good news for parents who are going through it is that the reverse happens very quickly too.
Okay.
That they turn the narrative back, that they can go back to loving the father again once they break free from the kind of the shackles of that narrative.
And if mom and dad are living in two different houses, then the children with mom all the time, dad really doesn't have any time or scope to claw back any of the goodness he's done, and to actually say, hang on, this is totally incorrect.
And that's what I actually found reading those letters that I got from all the readers that read that there over the last number of weeks. Very difficult to read, because what you're describing there is exactly what's going on for people.
What do they say? These say maybe particularly fathers that got in touch with
fathers that I heard of. I'm just recalling these stories. One father wrote to me, said, "I've had 5 different judges decree that I should be." He said, he gave me the quote that it's in the child's best interest for him to see for the child to see his father. And he said, and they haven't yet followed through on their access, because when I called to the house, they're not in. They've been removed from the situation of him being there. So he said, I have no access. And in that email, he said, I haven't seen my child since Christmas 2014.
Oh, and Richard, do you think people realise, or say one parent that is the cause of this type of narrative change, do you think they realise they're doing this, or maybe they are so upset themselves that they're kind of inadvertently saying stuff to the kids?
I think that's such a crucial point, Maura. I think the reality is that the majority, some do, in severe cases, realise that they're driving a wedge between their child and their father. In the majority of cases, they don't understand.
They're just annoyed.
They're just annoyed. Generally, if you want to know kind of a case study, father, leaves the family and then finds himself being alienated because the mother has decided, in a kind of a Medea type thing, if you're going to do this to me, I'm going to do this to you. And it's I'll drive a wedge between your relationship with your son and yourself. But they don't realise that it's the long-term effects of it. They don't realise that it...
Because obviously it can be women as well in certain cases, but as you say, the majority, because of the way the court system works here. So what can you do to rectify this?
Well, it's very hard to work with it, because you are always looking as a psychotherapist for the signs. Is this alienation, or is this actually a genuine child's opposition to the father because the father has been very negative or abusive towards them? And what you can do when you're working with a child that has been coerced into a particular narrative is to try to rebuild those narratives where the father was seen as a good guy and a productive.
Richard, is it not going to come to the point, say, for example, it might take 5 or 10 years, but children, they're smart, they're going to say, hang on a second here now, Dad really wasn't like that at all, and then realise, hang on, Mom, maybe you're the problem, or vice versa.
That's what I see a lot from 20-year-olds. Because when you're adolescents, your brain hasn't developed enough yet to be critical. You're more black and white. But as you get older and your brain develops and fully develops into your, like, say, mid-20s, you start to analyse things and you see it more objectively. And that's what I would say to the alienating parent. They don't realise what's going to come down the road, and that is themselves being alienated through their behaviour.
I imagine the relation between both parents at that stage is, for example, if a couple break up, they're separate ways for a month, and there's always hope that they may get back together for themselves and for the kids. But I'd imagine if this happens, Richard, that's it.
That's it.
There's no going back.
There's no going back. It's actually, to be honest, it's like total war. It's like scorched earth stuff. You're just going to annihilate all that's good and healthy.
Yeah, so if anyone is, I suppose, really your message is to parents, even if inadvertently doing it, check yourself.
Yeah. If you notice that your child is, all of a sudden developed this opposition to dad or mom, because women experience it too. You have to look at yourself and see what's happening here in my interactions. And the reality is, children are hearing adult themes, and that's feeding into their own ideas about mom.
Even if you think they're not listening, they're
always
listening.
They're always listening.
You notice at any age they do.
And they're always trying to interpret and understand
what's going on. Richard, thank you very much.
Thank you for raising this issue.
Great to have you as always. Now, still to come, Joe.